So for me, instead, like, I'm hearing loads of these like very stressed out comments from all over the industry. But I think that more than anything else, what the industry needs is someone to tell them like, hey, calm down.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yep.
And there's actually great opportunity in that.
So
Because
much opportunity. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So what type of events are you normally working? And, because that's also interesting how the different opportunities, depending on the type of events that people are doing. So do you typically work certain types of events or trade shows or social events or business or all different?
yeah, like for us, the industry doesn't really matter that much, but most of the events that we've handled so far were tech, business, startup oriented.
Yeah.
So quite the standard. We don't really typically do trade shows, even though we were looking at them in the past. Well,
Yeah.
maybe times have changed, but we do especially like well, our focus is in conferences and in
Okay.
conferences with the focus on networking.
Oh,
So like
perfect.
community oriented events, but every single conference happens to have at least some exhibitors, some sponsors
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
pay for the event,
Right,
right?
exactly. That's the biggest offset because yeah, you have your ticket sales, but then you also have your exhibitor sponsors. And that's really where I find a big gap in the industry and where my background and why I love to fill this gap of so many times organizers or the conferences, they have such a great experience and even a customer journey for the ticket holder. So once they purchase their ticket, they maybe get a follow-up sequence, they know what's going on, they know what to expect, and then the exhibitors and sponsors, they may have their exhibitor kit. They may be told like, oh,
Yeah.
here's what's going on, but there's still this little bit of this gap. And the relationship and why I made that post and the case study I'm working on is really that communication between the organizer or the conference and then making sure that the sponsors and the exhibitors have a great customer journey and a great experience because chances are they're not just attending and participating in that one event. They're going to other industry events and they're spending a lot of money to decide if they're coming back or not coming back. And it goes a lot more than the logistics, which is why I partner with event management because that that was my background. I've done some of the logistics on the front end, but it's more so I get more fulfillment helping these exhibitors, sponsors on the expo floor because you're right, conferences are heavily on the networking and making sure that there's an experience. But then the expo floor, they have a whole different set of expectations. So it's really communicating and building relationships with event management and different industries out there.
Cool, yeah. So that's, I mean, I definitely see it. And in like, quite frankly, this is one of the things that we know of that we've been trying to deal with, partially at least, but it has never been our main focus. But
Yeah.
it's something that needs to be done, and especially now. So what's the, like, what are you up to now, actually?
Yeah, so and also talking about virtual or hybrid, and it's interesting because it's something that I've been emphasizing for years, and not that I'm happy that COVID is here, but it's really emphasizing the need of those hybrid or the virtual touch points. So if we look at an event, a lot of times I'm looking at the campaign. I call an event a campaign. So instead of an exhibitor or sponsoring company, let's say they could spend $5,000 in Facebook ads or Google advertising, or they could spend $5,000 to Expo and be a sponsor, right? So we're looking at the 90 days beforehand, the week of, and then 60 days after. And of course, that can shift, but that's kind of like my go to. What are we doing before the event? And that goes again beyond the logistics. So you think of the exhibitor kit, um, and it's very logistical. So what's happening is having a lot of these conversations of, okay, at first it was, do we cancel our show? Do we postpone? Do we go virtual? Now that a lot of those decisions have been made one way or another, either cancel, postpone, or go online, now the conversation turns into, well, we before had these sponsorship opportunities, which is a 10 by 10 and logo placement and sponsoring the networking event and sponsoring the opening remarks, right? And those sponsorship opportunities are no longer valid. So either the conference and the organizer need to readjust and understand what these exhibitors and sponsors want, and that's the case study, and that's who I work with. And those conversations, really, it doesn't matter if they're in person or if it's virtual, they want marketing. They want to connect with a mutual audience. They want to have 5 to 8 touch points typically, whether that's, getting in front of the email list. They want to know who they're talking to. They want to know if they're actual potential buyers or strategic partners. And we can do that in a virtual world. We can do that through different avenues. And so a big conversation and what I'm working on is, okay, so if not in person, how can we take those opportunities? How can we still satisfy and keep these sponsors and exhibitors satisfied and happy, and make sure that they have a successful campaign? Because otherwise they're just going to take that money that they otherwise put into events, they're just going to reallocate that into some other marketing effort. So how can we keep that still in the event budget? It's just when you're approaching them, hey, would you like to sponsor my event? Their immediate thought is, well, we don't have an event or travel budget anymore. Rather than, hey, we have this audience, how can we partner together and how can we deliver your message in front of this audience? So those are some of the conversations, and it's interesting, and I think that's why you and I connected was, I'm having these conversations anyway, and I want to know from the organizer perspective, like, what do they want to know? Because I'm having these conversations with sales teams, marketing teams, and that's where it's exciting. So it's been fun.
Yeah, this is really, really, I'm really glad that I saw that post, because like, I'm having the same type of conversations, just exactly from 2 different standpoints. Like, first one are the organizers, because they're screwed. They don't know how to run virtual events. They don't know how, well, most of them think that virtual conference equals conference on Zoom with, come on.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
No, please. There's so much more opportunity. Yeah.
And so definitely, so like, we've sorted, like, the way I see it, like what I've learned in the past 3-4 months, right, is that there are several key factors to actually running a proper virtual conference, and the same eventually goes for hybrid. But first of all, only now, many organizers are finally realizing that the conferences are not just about the content, because yes, they're always about connections.
Yes.
Duh.
Exactly. And emphasizing those connections. And they are the connector. The organizer, they are the ones to thank, because they are the connector, putting all of these people together in a meaningful, intentional way.
Exactly. Very nice said. I should start using the sentence more often.
I like it.
So do I. Yes, so definitely, like, the whole networking, the community spirit, the element of that, exactly. People, the organizers bring those people under one roof or on some virtual platform, but they somehow need to provide them, especially in the virtual space, to get these interactions going. So that's one thing. Sure, the content is absolutely important, because that's what was the driver why these people are going to purchase the ticket, because they kind of feel like, oh, there's going to be relevant people to my topic of interest.
Yeah,
that's okay. But also, like, the attention of the virtual attendees is below.
Yeah, it's a whole different environment, and for the speakers, presenters too. You may have a really engaging speaker presenter who can engage a room and a stage, and then online it's a lot different, and how you may have the same content, but the format may it may need to be tweaked or delivered slightly different, maybe in smaller segments and more engagement in between. How are you breaking up that hour presentation?
Yeah, exactly. Like there are no more of these 1 hour long presentations. That just won't fly in the virtual world.
Right.
But what also, and I'm not sure what's the situation like in States, and I would actually love to hear that.
Yeah.
But the thing that's happening here in Europe, or especially right now, before we were looking more for the Central Eastern Europe. Right now, we are working primarily with event agencies and tech partners here in the Czech Republic. Because now, we are very close and they're running to us like, help us. I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do something. And what they've started doing is that pretty much every single event agency now, which is worth something, they've built their own virtual studios, like television studios.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very, very good thing to have, because we've had enough of these great presenters sitting like this in their chair with their kids running around.
I know.
Sometimes without pants.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I've seen this too, and that's kind of that hybrid model where the vendors, they already have relationships with typically an AV team or some sort of production team anyway. And so it's really fun to see the ways that they're partnering up together, where now you have a main stage, you have this studio, and then it's being broadcasted out rather than every individual speaker or the MC is really just in front of their webcam. I'm starting to see that as well. I think we'll see more and more of that. And I'm excited. I am really excited for that because I've seen some of that before all of this went down. Think of TEDx. TEDx is a global, very well-known format just like that, where they have that one main stage, maybe a very small audience, but then it can be broadcasted. And so I think that that's going to be definitely really popular and integrated more into these events.
Exactly. But this goes hand in hand also with these organizers having to spend some money, because these studios are not cheap, not really a cheap thing.
Right.
And that's additional reason why they need those sponsors. Because even though the price for venue and catering basically disappeared, if you want to deliver some high quality content in a manner that like it's the same, like exactly TEDx or a TED.
Right.
It's a big difference if you watch a tremendous speaker talk about an incredibly interesting topic from their couch versus from the stage, even though it's on YouTube.
It's really interesting. I think too, it is definitely a personality thing with these personalities that typically are speakers or presenters or even a fireside chat or a panel. It's a lot different to see them up on stage and with a microphone, maybe in a chair, versus here in Zoom or some sort of virtual platform. You just feed off of, I think people in the event industry, we just do feed off of energy anyway. And so yeah, it's been interesting. I'm seeing some of that too. And some of these event management teams that were maybe slightly ahead of the curve, they already have these studios set up, or maybe they have a strong partnership with their AV team. Because now we're talking production. We are really talking having people that maybe you were doing some sort of virtual track before. That is a production team. That is a videographer team, but somebody still managing the tech, where event organizers in the past is very logistical oriented, and what time does coffee come out and what time does the speaker lineup go on, and very logistical, making sure that who needs to be where and when, what needs to be where and how, where now all the technical things, that's a whole nother skill set. That's a whole nother thing to ensure is happening. And that's not necessarily on the event manager or on the organizer themselves. But who is that person? Who is that team? And having those relationships already ready.
Yeah, well, that's exactly like it's the new world in many ways. but it's absolutely not. It is absolutely possible. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what I'm the biggest thing that I'm saying here, because basically ever since we started talking about like, okay, let's I'm gonna give you a super quick rundown of our situation in the past couple of months, right?
Okay.
So, okay, actually last year, around this time, we've just launched our software for conferences. Basically, plus minus a regular conference app for attendees with the focus on networking and one-to-one scheduling. We've had some, cool things, but it was nothing like groundbreaking that you wouldn't see that our top-notch competitors weren't doing in some way or another. But we had some good things going on. Like we've scored some big conferences here in the region, and we just started growing. We've raised the investment now, back in March, which then was withheld because of the whole market situation.
Yeah.
But we got it just today, so I'm in a good mood. And
Today?
yeah.
Oh wow! Congrats. Nice.
Thank you. Well, we are in Europe, so basically the typical investment size, ticket size is like 10 times smaller than in States. But yeah, it still counts.
Interesting. Yeah.
But what's important is that basically in March, when all of our clients' events got canceled or started getting postponed, eventually canceled, we really thought that we were screwed for a moment. But it turned out that we could very well rebuild, or not rebuild, but build additional layer on top of our existing solution. And thanks to that, we've actually got some nice traction going on and some interest from the local media and interest of the whole Czechoslovak market from the event agencies and from AV productions because they work very close with those event agencies. And what they need is to somehow deliver this content. And they also understand that it's not just about the content, but that more pieces need to come together.
Yeah.
And that's what started putting us into a very interesting position in the sense, because we now work with those other media companies and with the event agencies, and they're basically reselling our software in a way. But the one thing that we all agreed on is that the conference owners, or whatever you want to call them, they need to be, or that the entire market, it needs loads of education.
Yes.
Because because of all we just spoke about.
Exactly. It's a whole new skill set. And, I'm fortunate that maybe I've been introduced to different platforms or different hybrid virtual just from the nature of my type of business and how I run my consulting. And it's really interesting where event planners who have been in the industry for so long doing the traditional style of events are now in need of that training and in need of what's out there and in need of either bringing on new team members or learning that skill set of these different, and it's very techy, it's very software driven. A lot of other developers maybe are shifting into the event market as well of their developers. So what's your software? What does it do, and how does that work? Because that's something of interest too. And what I'm comparing, also part of this case study, is the different platforms out there, their capabilities, and hearing it from the sponsorship and exhibitor need. They want data, they want their attendees, they want connections, they want to be able to deliver their message of some way in an easy formatted way, not Zoom, which may be different from the organizer's needs of what type of platform that they're looking for.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing, because you somehow need to merge everything together. And that's almost impossible. Yeah. But it is. Like basically our approach, because even before this whole mess started, our main focus always was on attendees.
Yeah.
But we knew that in order to satisfy the needs of attendees, we also had to provide a bunch of additional layers that organizers need, respectively some that exhibitors need, because
Yeah.
it's a big puzzle.
Yeah, exactly. The exhibitors and sponsors want to get in front of the same attendees as the organizer wants to bring in. And it's that double-edged sword. You need the attendees to support the sponsors and exhibitors. And then you want to make sure that the attendees have a great experience. And so there's all these moving parts and different intentions going on.
Yeah, well, let me share
Yeah,
it
please
briefly. I
do.
will show it mostly from the attendee
Yeah.
perspective. By
Yeah.
the way, on Whereby, if you just double click, it will enlarge.
Okay. Do you mind actually if I record part of this conversation? That way, one, I can share it, feature it, introduce other people as well.
Oh, sure, why not? Like, and then I can send you some proper, like some more information.
Yeah, absolutely.
You-
Yeah, this is great.
whatever
Yeah, I
you
would love
want.
to. Yeah, go ahead, dive in. Tell me all about this.
Cool. So first of all, what you're seeing is our web version of the application from the perspective of the attendee, respectively exhibitor as well. What you're not seeing here are our mobile apps for iOS and Android. These will be again re-released in September. We currently put a halt on them, and we've been moving forward with this version now. But when attendees are asked to come to this app, that it's the official app of the given conference, they simply come here, they log in with like LinkedIn or Google or directly with us. And where they get to is what we call a master account. So if these attendees are attending numerous events or conferences, they already have their account pre-created. And thanks to that, we can also re-invite them and all invite them to events that could be of their interest in their area at their price range, at whatever. But let me go. Okay, so just for the purposes of demonstrating something, I will first quickly jump into this conference. It was a very, very small conference, an event focused on matchmaking between people from all over Europe. So you can see that there are some modules here on the side. There is the logo of the client, the name of the event. That's it. I will go to our online demo conference now. And what you see is that the colors have changed. There are more modules on the side. Some of them are the same modules, just with the different name, different description. Some of them with slightly different functionalities. And that's the key, because our whole software has been developed and designed in a way to be easily, very, very easily adjustable for the purposes of specific conference. Because every conference is different.
Absolutely. It is. And that's what makes it so fun, is you may have a similar process or needs, but every event will be different.
Yeah, 100%. So what you see here is the program of the conference. We do have some basic description, or there is just the name of the event. And there's information like which track it is, at what time it's starting. There could be also information about speakers who are presenting at this particular part, whatever. Basically, whatever you want to fill into this detailed card can be done. If you have multi-day, multi-track agenda, what will happen here is that you see the days here in the upper part, and the agenda or different tracks are distinguished by the color. But here there are only 3 events, each starting at different times, so it's very easy to navigate.
Yep.
And for the virtual and hybrid events, there is also a link to attend this particular session. So what it does, and it's going to open on the same domain, which gives us several things. But I will get back to it. So first of all, what's happening here? I will turn off the noise. You can see that this is some event or some video that has been pre-recorded here. In this particular case, this is placed on YouTube. And on YouTube, you can have pre-recorded videos, you can have live streams. What's the problem, or what's the benefit of YouTube is that it's free. But also the problem, which is a problem for some clients, is that it can be easily accessed by anyone else, anyone who doesn't have a link to the platform. So, or that people can just copy paste it, put it on Facebook or wherever.
Right.
So for the clients who wants to keep their video private, we recommend going for Twitch or for Vimeo, which is a little bit pricier, but it gives you a great level of control over things. But yeah, so it doesn't matter for us. We can integrate anything. There could just as well be like a video which is being live streamed from the studio and then placed on Vimeo and then embedded into our app. That's something for tech people to deal with. The client or the end user only sees this. So they access the video, they watch it. Here in the panel, they see chat, so they can chat with all the attendees currently watching the presentation. They see the link of the list of all the people currently watching the presentation, and they can post questions through the live Q&A. For this, we have embedded Slido, which is also our local provider, who's I believe well known in the States. But let me go back to some more interesting things. So first of all, with the program, each attendee is able to really like create their own personal agenda. So they can book some sessions, which everything goes to their calendar. They can do the same with workshops. Well, we call it workshops at physical events. At virtual events, we call those virtual roundtable debates.
Okay.
So like, so people can just join in, book their spot. Like here now are like 0 places taken so far. And if I book this again goes into my personal agenda, which is super important because if I go to networking section and I start previewing some of our, all of our other people, attendees attending this event, the one thing that I can do is just frankly invite them. And when I'm inviting them, what's happening here on the agendas or on the time picker section, well, please, first of all, keep in mind that this is our demo conference and we keep testing at night especially. So there's loads and loads of these time slots.
Yes.
From midnight to midnight. But what is happening here is that a time picker or the system takes into consideration several things. The opening hours of the conference, my agenda, the agenda of the person that I'm currently inviting, the time availability of, seats at the physical events, at virtual events, it doesn't matter. And also, it can take into consideration some sponsored sessions. So for example, if you have, a session presentation that you want everyone to be at, you as an organizer decide that from 2 o'clock to 3:15, no one is allowed to schedule the one-to-one meetings. So everyone is in the room watching. So, right, basically what I just do is like, okay, let me pick one of these times. Actually, let me go for today so we can then change, see the meeting ourselves. Right, so I'm inviting someone for 6:15 today. By the way, this is in my local time zone. If you are, that's the most important thing. So people don't have to do the calculation if they are inviting someone from the other part of the world.
Perfect.
So so I'm gonna invite this demo account for the one-to-one meeting. Now, basically, it's like a LinkedIn kind of style of invitation. You can say like, "Hi, Paris, let's meet, talk about whatever." And I see that it's going to be a video call. So I send it out. And now all I need to do is basically wait for Paris to respond. Or I can always go back, change time, propose some other whatever. Let me now log in as Paris. I'm gonna accept the invitation. In the meanwhile, by the way, the invitation or the meeting is to start at, 10 minutes. So we will soon be able to check it out. Okay, I see that I've got invitation into response section. By the way, I would have received a regular like desktop notification if I weren't logged in on like 20 different accounts. So yeah, so this is how the received invitation looks like. I know who's inviting me. I know for what time they're inviting me, what they're telling me. Okay, the profile is empty, so I can either accept, decline, or reschedule. So I'm just gonna accept. Now this meeting has been booked and it went to my personal agenda. So again, I will be notified about this an hour before the meeting and then again like 5 minutes before the meeting. And that's pretty much it regarding the one-to-one functionality. I will get back to it, but before, because now we have 5 minutes before we will be able to access the meeting. So let me log in and show you the one thing that I'm really, really proud of. Because if we go to this conference, right? So this is the event that already happened in the past. But what's really cool here, because when I said that we are all about networking and that every single conference is different, well, it didn't really make sense to build the profiles in some unified way where you would have some job information and something about me or whatever. So instead, what we do, or actually what conference organizers do, is that they decide what type of information should be at the profiles. So this conference was for startups and investors, especially. So what we did is that we created, well, not created, just fed the system with the data that we wanted. And the startups or all the people who had a startup ticket type, they had this type of profile. So they were asked to fill in information about the startup stage, business type, product type, a couple other things. As opposed investors were asked which type of startups were they investing in and what is their typical ticket size. And this is what affected heavily how the filters look like.
This is definitely a need, and just in my conversations right here, what you're hitting on is really something that isn't necessarily happening with other platforms because they just have a standard profile where the different types of people want to know why they're attending and what they're looking for. So you're able to customize that feature is what this is showing us.
Yeah,
wow.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Customize it not just by the conference, but also by the type of the ticket. So actually, one thing, definitely important one, is to say that some people here, actually let me go for, right, so, okay, so for example, this is an, at this conference, there were startups, investors, some people from academia, and some sponsors. And people who had the education ticket type, so they had some discounts from the university, they had different things on their profile. They were not asked about the startup stage. They also didn't have access to the same filters. And they didn't have an access to all the same modules. So for example, they could not even attend the roundtables. So they didn't see them, frankly, in the end.
Right, right. You kept it very clean as far as the user experience so that they could experience the conference how a student would want to experience the conference. An investor can experience the conference how an investor wants to experience the conference.
Yeah, exactly. And it also helps the conference planner to adjust the prices of the tickets based on the specific type of experience.
Absolutely. And ask the right questions, which I see is missed a lot of times as well. And that way, too, an exhibitor or a sponsor, they know if they're talking to a potential buyer or to a potential partner or to who are they talking to. If they're talking to a student and they come by their booth, they're not going to necessarily pitch them any sort of sales opportunity to a student, but now they know that right in here. They know why this person is attending and what they're interested, so that you can approach that conversation appropriately.
Yeah, and you already, exactly, you know who they are, you know what to talk about.
Yeah.
And one thing that I really, really like, and it's optional. Basically, everything that you've seen so far is optional because it depends on the specific setup. But one thing that I really like for these matchmaking type of events, and especially for the events with the focus on be it matchmaking between attendees, but it can just as well be matchmaking between attendees and exhibitors. Because for
Absolutely.
me, the way I think about it is that every single type of event is nothing else but the supply looking for the demand.
Right.
And be it connections, be it hires, be it whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And understanding, and this is something that I do a speech on, is know who you're talking to beyond their first name. It's one thing to know them and not forget their first name, but the more that you can better understand their intention and what it is that they're looking for, the better that you can steer that conversation in a more meaningful and impactful way. Whether that's in person or virtually, you're actually giving the tools so that it's easier to make those connections and have the right conversations with the right people.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
And what really helps with that, based on our experience, is exactly like knowing who each person is, what is it they're offering, what is it that they're looking for. So one of the things that we can do with some conferences, and especially now with the virtual and hybrid conferences, is to connect to the ticketing portal used by the given conference and start collecting exactly this type of information about attendees when they purchase the ticket.
Yeah. And that's right.
And
And that customer journey can start right then and there. Once you have that
exactly,
information, there's no reason why we have to wait until the week of. That matchmaking can happen as soon as we start getting those connections, tickets, exhibitors. There's no reason why we have to delay those intentions and those meetings.
well, that's one exactly, that it goes much faster, much smoother, but that also the overall quality of these matches is much higher because people know whom they're inviting and for what purpose. And there are
Exactly.
no empty profiles, no nothing like that.
And even with in-person events, this is what I'm excited to see, the integrations of having something like this beforehand and after. And that way too, if this is happening before an event, and let's say that you do have an in-person event, how awesome is that? You can have these conversations, and then by the time you actually meet one another face to face at that in-person event, you've actually accelerated that customer journey. And so the handshake or elbow tap, whatever maybe, is not an introduction face to face, but you're actually ready to move forward maybe with a partnership or a deal or networking or whatever it may be, because you've had that time before the event. And this is going back to our conversation before, during, and after. And you know already by the time you meet that person face to face, without doing the whole icebreaker, you know, uh, first impression doesn't have to be at the event. And that's what I'm excited. I think that that is so cool. Can I invite you to be a part of that case study? Because that component right there, what you just showed me, I would love to feature that.
I'm definitely not gonna say no to that.
Yeah, and I think too, as I'm working and building this out, like that component in itself really will help resolve a lot of these solutions. And exactly, I'm telling you, I just had a conversation last week with an exhibitor that I've worked with, and that was a big need of his. He wants to know the intention and the reason why different people are attending the event so he can better have a conversation. And that right there is the solution. So thank you for
Exactly
being
that.
a mastermind in the event industry to create this solution. I think that that is great. And thank you for sharing that. That was definitely informative. Now that portal, is that what the attendee sees? They log in, everybody gets their portal, and they get that same portal for every single event. So I saw those different events. They get their same portal back office regardless of which event they're attending.
Well, the system is the same,
Okay.
but each conference can be different.
Okay.
And that's also the thing, because even the exhibitor,
Yeah.
they get the same app, but it can look differently for them because they are exhibitors.
Right.
So they may have
so it's
access to different features.
So you have that main screen with the different events, and if you log into one event and you're a sponsor and an exhibitor, your menu will change than if you're an attendee for another event that you're attending. Your capabilities will change.
Yeah.
Okay.
It may, exactly.
Yeah,
like you might
that
get
makes sense.
access to some additional things.
That's very
But
cool.
in the first thing, like everyone is an attendee. But
Yeah.
some people are VIPs, some people are speakers, some people are exhibitors, and they need their needs taken care of.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there is just no, like, the one thing that I really hated at conferences and events all the time as an attendee was when I was asked to access 3 or 5 different platforms for minor tasks. So that's why we are putting everything together, and we don't even develop everything ourselves. We really love integrations.
That was my next question. As I'm having these conversations, there's at least 3 or 4 top of mind. And if you're open to integrations, if that's a capability, would you be open to that? Are you the person that I would make that direct intro to, or do you want me to CC you?
Definitely, it would be about CCing our CTO, but let's like, if you can hit me like just like some names of the companies, I'd love to, like, just to see if it's possible, if it makes sense, and then yes, 100%, because like, we're so much stronger like if we put all these things together.
Collaboration. And it's interesting as I'm having these conversations, which platforms are not open to those conversations, not even open to considering. And it's going to be very interesting, I would say, in the next 6 months to a year to the next 5 years, where the ones that are open, at least having the conversation of, can we have an integration? Does it make sense? It doesn't mean that every single platform needs to integrate and talk to one another, but having those partnerships, and even you and I, having that conversation that we saw in a forum and decided to jump on and just see how we can collaborate. So absolutely, the other thing that I'm working on, and I can email to you, are you familiar with BizBash? I know that they're a global event publisher. BizBash.
It's possible that we have them somewhere in our knowledge base.
They're more so a magazine, and they feature different event services and different event organizers. So they came out with a virtual comparison. And so I took that, and I give them credit. Because it really has allowed me to better compare apples to apples, what different features are. And so what I'm doing is I'm sharing that with either my clients or people in my network by request. And I would love to send that to you and maybe your CTO, because then, one, it's giving a very high level as far as these organizers, like you said, where do I start? What do I do? To at least narrow down. And that's been a big part of my role, is understanding the different capabilities. So if their need and a big objective is networking, then I absolutely want to show them why I want to make that intro to you. Not just, make an intro blindly, but understand if networking and matchmaking is a big objective, then your platform should absolutely be a demo that they should take, where, because there are dozens and dozens out there, it doesn't make sense for them to jump on every single call or every single demo. So I can share that with you, and take a few times.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. But I need to come back to sharing the screen, because I was killing some time before our meeting was in progress. But the one that we scheduled a couple minutes ago is already 4 minutes in progress.
Oh,
so
let's see. Okay.
Now we can actually attend it. And I'm going to be alone in the room, which is going to be sad, but I don't think it matters that much. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the sound so we don't go deaf. But basically what you're seeing here is the inside of our virtual one-on-one room.
Okay.
And I see that the room is going to be over in 10 minutes. So it's gonna close down. It's the equivalent of the one-to-one meetings on physical conferences. Once it's over, you need to go. There is someone else coming.
Yeah.
But there are like, all the typical functionalities. So you've got a chat. You can actually invite your colleagues or co-founders or friends to join this meeting room, provided that they are also attending the given conference, that they have purchased the ticket.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's a domain secured connection, so we don't let them in.
Yeah.
And basically the very same, because this is not running like the video, it's fully under our control, but it's running on a cloud technology, so we don't really care from wherever in the world people are connecting it to.
Okay.
And the same technology we are using for the virtual roundtable debates, and we're gonna use it also for the online exhibitor stands or booths. And that's also the reason why I wanted to talk to you in the first place.
Yes, yeah.
Because right now, like the exhibitors as we have them, it's just a custom list basically. So there can be some logo, information, like links to social media, but there definitely needs to be something more, especially now for the virtual world.
Yeah.
And we are building up a couple of things, but we are deciding how to make the exhibitor booths as actually worth it. Not just I'm here standing all day waiting for someone to go by.
Yeah. So is that something that maybe you and we can continue those conversations? I can give you those insights as I'm having conversations with my case study, what I'm seeing with other platforms, and how to bring in that experience. I can tell you top of mind, they want lead generation. If somebody's stopping by their booth, they want that data. They want to know that they have permission to follow up with them, so some sort of opt-in, or especially when we're talking global events, there are so many different regulations of what we can and can't do with that lead generation, so they want to make sure that they're compliant, that they can capture that information, that they
This is actually so much easier online than offline.
I know.
To get the
I know, because you have that. It's already built in, which is great. And if we can better communicate that to the organizers, that we're actually making it easy, because so many times, and sometimes I'm hired for exhibitor sponsors, because even though they talk to so many people, they don't know who they're talking to. They don't know if they're a lead. They don't know, they have the conversation in person, but then they have all these business cards, and they just don't know how to best follow up. So the data and the databases that the conference sits on, if it can help to streamline and make those segmentations, right? So being able to have the booth that they can, one, capture that information, two, that they can showcase, whether it be, instead of a brochure that you hand out at the booth, what can they stick on? What sort of call to action? What sort of promotion? What sort of information can they easily download? Or as if you were making that handoff at the booth, they can, in their little virtual booth, download that information. So having that, having what I've seen with some other platforms that people like is one of two options. Either the capability to have that pre-recorded video like you showed me, but also to have a secondary where you can have booth hours. And so just like you would, let's say that it's a 4-day conference, your expo floor isn't all 4 days for 24 hours. Typically, you're going to have set hours that the expo floor is open, and who's manning that booth. So in an in-person, there's brand ambassador companies. You send your salespeople, you send your CEO. Who's manning the booth in person may be slightly different, where virtual assistants, that's something that my team can help with, where you may or may not need somebody behind the scenes, kind of that chat feature. So, hey, somebody stopped by my booth, and that becomes, hey, let me help you get set up with that one-to-one matchmaking, because it may not be, one, worth your CEO's time or your top sale producer's time to sit there And we see this in live events too. But how can they be notified, hey, somebody's stopping by your booth, have an immediate real person of some sort, but what's interesting, that can be a virtual assistant. That can be some sort of, should be a personal touch. I don't necessarily think it should be a chat bot. That's my own 2 cents, right? But if they're coming in and they stop by the booth, hi, how are you? What brings you here today? Have that conversation, and then it actually becomes an appointment setter. So then if you're CEO or if you're top salesperson, they don't have to be waiting around at their computer just waiting, but they then get a personal notification to say, hey, you have somebody at your booth, and here's kind of the pre-qualifiers. Maybe that person is having a conversation. So actually what you're doing is investing the time for a virtual assistant to man that booth, someone that's educated in the platform, somebody that's not like finagling all over, and then all that that salesperson, your CEO, or who is it that they're trying to talk to, depending who's stopping by the booth. If it's a student, they may need to get connected with HR. If it's a potential buyer, they may need to be connected to a different person. But you can have one person manning the booth and again, continue that customer journey. Does that make sense? Is that making sense?
It does. It
Do you like
does.
that?
Very, very good one.
Right.
And I really hope that we can find some time to think about this more, because I really love nothing more but to invite our product designer into this conversation.
Yeah, I would love to continue the conversation. And again, as a case study, this means this is ongoing. These are ongoing conversations. It helps us better introduce who we are, helps validate who are the players in the industry. And those little nuggets that I'm picking up and having real conversations with these people, because if you're paying your CEO or your top salesperson, they should be out there having conversations, not being trained hours to figure out how to navigate a software. They should have some sort of understanding. They need some sort of basic level. But then you can man, and on your end as the organizer, you may only need a handful of these virtual assistants that can actually man your sponsors and exhibitors. And they're trained. They're still trained. So I would love to see more of that. I'm starting to see some of that, but even if the capability is there, then it's a matter of finding that solution. That's something, that I have people that we can train. But yeah, that's been a couple lead gen, manning the booth, the time that it takes to learn a new platform. Like you mentioned, nobody wants to learn 7 different platforms. So if a salesperson, if they're signed up for 10 different virtual events, that means that they're learning 10 different platforms, and that can become very cumbersome. Their job and their skill set is to make sales, not sit there and learn 7 different platforms because their marketing and sales teams signed them up for 7 different events.
Well, this is really, really super cool. And one thing that I need to ask.
Yes.
When do you think that this case study or that some pieces of it might start coming out?
So this month I am doing at least an intro. I'm doing a virtual event on August 26th. And so what I plan to do is at least kind of have an overview. I think I have a half hour maybe. And so what I'm doing is follow me on LinkedIn. That's why we connected on LinkedIn, because what I'm already doing, and with your permission as well, I recorded our conversation. I would like to take a component of this. I have my YouTube. So I want this to be a journey. And then I want to at least drip out probably once a month updates. So again, that's why I use the word case study, is August 26th, I plan to at least have some sort of collection and framework and invite people to that conversation. On my LinkedIn, I don't know if you saw, I actually have 27 sales and marketing teams already interested in either having conversations, completing a survey, doing a roundtable with me. And I just posted that on Thursday. So there's definitely a lot of interest. And so what I want to do in this week, I'm gathering who wants to be a part of it. The following week, I'm kind of formatting the questions, at least for phase 1, and would love to, and you can always email me, maybe we can chit chat. You had some great questions, formulate that. So then by week 3, which is like the week of the 19th, start to generate some of those question surveys. And that way on August 26th, I at least have an idea and can present, hey, here's the feedback, here's at least what we're looking to do, here's, a couple comments, here's, 3 insights, but then every month I plan to have it an ongoing conversation. So I hope that that's
perfect.
good.
Absolutely perfect. Because the sole reason why I was asking that is that, coming back to the beginning of our conversation and to our new position and the fact that we are now cooperating with several very, very interesting event agencies and other media companies, including the one called Ava Media.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
no, it's the one in the Czech Republic. It's
okay.
one of the
yeah, I would love to know them.
And so the one thing that we've decided to do was to educate the market. And the easiest way how we've decided, or the most useful way, or relevant, we've picked the format of virtual conference with some hybrid aspects. So actually the speakers joining in from the virtual studio, those who can in person, those who can't, well, outside of it on Zoom, but still presented in the virtual studio. And of course, ran on our platform. And the focus is a Czech and Slovak market.
Okay.
Most of the aspects will be held in Czech, at least for the first series.
Okay.
But we are right now aiming for 500 people, like event managers, exhibitors, owners of the conference venues.
Okay.
And we already have some some sponsors or the media partners and the main general partner confirmed. We will be releasing, officially announcing the event at the end of this week or at the beginning of next week. And I've been looking for some interesting foreign speaker to, come talk to. Maybe exactly about that, because
that would be something that I see both sides of the table very interested in. And that, when people ask Michelle, what do you do? I want to be that thought leadership that's making that connection, because my background on both the logistics, but then I have the connections with both ends of the table. That now, is that something, when are you looking to do that event? You're announcing this week.
Mid-September.
Okay. And are you looking for a foreign speaker to go there in a hybrid or virtually, that I could deliver it virtually?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It would be something to do virtually.
So then that would be a great, again, if I'm putting kind of the framework August, and then we still have another 4 weeks, I can bring in even more information and more format. And then by the time your event, then I could give a little hindsight, kind of what's going on, a little bit, recap what happened in August, but then I'll have a lot more information, more conversations by September.
Yeah, and I think that it would be really, really interesting, because the whole market is struggling with that. And we may be on the Czech market, we may know of partners who are great in audiovisual content, in all the heavily technical stuff around it.
Yeah.
We are the ones focused on delivery and on the networking element, but the sponsorship, that's such a big part, such a big one, and so important. And I think that you would be just perfect.
I would very much welcome the conversation of what that looks like, what sort of expectations you and your team would have of me, and what it is that we're looking for. And also, because I'm having these conversations over the next month and a half, 2 months, that those are exactly the people that you're looking to be introduced to, and then vice versa, your audience is exactly who I'm looking to get the case study in the hands of. That I think that
it's worked out perfectly.
Yeah. What next steps do you need to do with your team? Obviously, put the date out there. But as far as having me as a speaker or presenter of this case study, or at least kind of the where we are at that point, what are those next steps, or do you want to talk to the team and maybe schedule a follow-up call?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I will have a proper look through your LinkedIn. We are now putting together the whole program of the event because the
Okay.
format is to have 3 to maximum 4 hours of content
Okay.
divided into 20-25 minutes blocks, and then have a space for the networking and for the roundtables.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
No.
think yeah, we will. I will let you know in a matter of few days, really, if we
Yeah.
would need.
Yeah, no, I think that that would be definitely worth the conversation and being able to tap into different markets, like you mentioned. Now, is it something? Are you looking to do a free event just to get the exposure, or will it be a paid? Or are you also looking for paid exhibitors, speakers, sponsors as well, or is that also what you're figuring out right now?
Okay, I'm gonna. This is actually already figured, but I'm gonna send you the summary like once we've got the event officially out there. Because right now we've been reaching out to first sponsors that we wanted to confirm.
Yeah.
But it's a non-profit event, but
Okay.
it's not. Yeah, sure. Like there are some costs. Like we actually want to turn it into a really nice case study about like sure, like minus the we are counting with between 11 to 15 sponsors of the
Okay.
event to put a budget together.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we are not planning to pay the speakers, that saying that upfront, because like who wants
Yeah.
to talk at this?
Right.
They better have something to say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and
But
that's a conversation too, where as a speaker, for me to be able to have the opportunity to get into a couple hundred ideal connections, that to me is worth the conversation, and then vice versa. If you have these sponsors, exhibitors, I would love to invite them to that conversation, because then that's an added feature, right? So if I have the permission and opportunity to, let's say, have conversations with those 12 sponsors, you as the organizer, you're getting direct information what your exhibitors are expecting and what they're looking for. And then on the flip side, I'm able to add that into the case study and have permission to be introduced to those sponsors, exhibitors. So I see a win-win.